Hey team, Van Dobbins back here with another Church Ops 500 podcast. Encourage you all, as always, if you can, like, share. We constantly are dropping content. I've got some great folks that are coming up to be a part of our time together to continue to inspire, to continue to give resources that I believe helps the operational development of every church organization. So again, please like on Facebook. We often can post questions there if you've got some specific questions from this podcast. Any material that we use in the podcast will be listed in the notes section with links. And I always ask that you subscribe to our YouTube, Facebook, and our podcast, and share, like, rate wherever you can to help us continue to get the word out, get the information out. Those that are trying to build a strong operational component to their churches and ultimately, I believe, to their businesses. Many of the philosophies we talk about and we share on, I think, work not only in the field that we're in when it comes to faith-based organizations, but I also think it applies greatly to outside organizations and just how people should be treated, how they should be valued. Today, we are going to be talking about problem solving. So many times we run into these places where, hey, how do I solve problems? And I believe one of the best ways to do that, especially if you don't have prior knowledge or information, is not to wait until a problem exists to solve it, to actually build a culture of problem solving, build a culture that sees problems as challenges. And if you are investing in that time to grow your teams, to grow their awareness, and to grow and cultivate yours, often you're able to quickly and efficiently solve challenges because you've already been preparing the ground for answers, for resources. So one of the things that I challenge my directors here at Every Nation Society with, and I challenge myself with, is that we must have an intentional mindset towards spiritual and role-focused growth. Man, there are many ways to achieve this growth, and we are always working toward new and inventive ways to accomplish that goal. And to fulfill our mission as a church is to honor God by loving the nations of our city to reach the nations of our world. Growth in these areas must be intentional and routinely evaluated for effectiveness. Now, like I said, what we're focused on today is really going to be kind of that problem solving, development, cultivating good habits around that. So how do we solve problems? How do we solve challenges before they even exist? How do we grow a team that is ready and willing and feels resourced to do this, as well as ourselves? Often we run into problems that we have never seen before. But one of the things that I think is true, and we see in the Bible, we see in Proverbs, man, there's nothing new under the sun. So most of the time, when you are trying to solve a problem, someone else has already experienced the problem, someone else has already solved the problem, or someone else is about to be in that problem solving area. So there's resources, there's people. But again, how do we tap into that? So I think there are some basic requirements that if we begin to cultivate these within our leadership, within our teams, we will often be able to solve problems before they even exist, solve challenges before they even exist. First and foremost, building local groups, local relationships. I call them the local requirements. So these are building relationships with other leaders in your area of focus. So if you're a worship leader, you should have local contacts, because one of the ways that you can solve problems is to be able to build these relationships with people who are doing what you do. So it's consistently meeting with them. This is often counterintuitive to the way that the church environment works. It's me and mine, and we stick together. But building these relationships, getting on Facebook groups, I know for our old school, for our younger folks, where can you get into these groups where you're getting information and able to build relationship in your city with people who do what you do, and periodically visiting their church. I think one of the things that we often miss out on is we're so busy doing the work of our ministry that we actually don't take time to go and visit other churches. Being able to learn what they're doing great and what they're not doing so great, and being able to build a relationship, learning that, man, we can help one another improve in a lot of these areas with just being in relationship. So it's first and foremost a local requirement. And then you have a global requirement. Expand your scope of knowledge intentionally beyond your city limits. I have other directors, other administrators in Chicago, in Texas, and even out in LA, in Florida, spanning, man, the entire state. Because again, when you're able to run into problems, I often think about COVID as one of these things that became a real hard challenge. All of us got into the same water at the same time, whether you were a mega church or you were a church of 10. The slate was wiped clean, and we all had to start problem solving at base level. This is one of the great ways to do that, because then you can see trends coming across the country. Many times within our country, things will start in a state and make its way across the nation. So having these relationships, for us, we're in Ohio, having relationships with folks out in California, I can learn about trends that could potentially be coming our way, both ones that we can capitalize on and also ones that might be damaging or challenging for us to overcome. Again, preparing and knowing beforehand. So local requirements, global requirements, relational requirements, building strong relationships with your teams and your leaders. So often we get so busy in the midst of doing the work that we actually don't realize we've got many of the problem solvers, many of the very people we need are in our ministry. So do you know what the persons on your people on your hospitality team, do you know what their jobs are? Do you know what areas of expertise they work in? Hey, we have people who are vocalists, who are instrumentalists, and that's their passion. They spend time doing that, but they're also physicists, and they're also in building management. They're also in finance. So do you know the skill sets, the abilities of the people within your serving teams? Often you will have people who show up to your church who manage hundreds, thousands of people in an organization, and they will come and silently serve on your hospitality team, greeting, shaking hands, and then they go back to this job where they are managing a ton of people. Are we tapping into the relational benefit that's right in our seats, in the seats of our congregation every week? Beginning to build on those relationships are huge. So local requirements, global requirements, relational requirements, and finally, missional requirements. Are we building systems and structures that give our teams and leaders clarity and confidence in their roles? Leadership teams, this is something that is huge for us. When you think about the ability to build a team, this is something that I would love to take credit for, but our lead pastor really worked to get these in place. When you think about your volunteer force, really seeing them as leaders, they want often to take on more weight, more ownership, more responsibility. And when you get them involved in the mission requirements, they begin to take more ownership, more weight. So every one of your ministries should be developing a leadership team. We've got a worship leadership team. We've got a hospitality leadership team. We've got a next generation leadership team. These are folks that are willing to take on more weight than the standard serving volunteer. Why do we do this? Because if we look at our ministries and look at our church and go, the only way that we build these systems is by paid people, we will routinely find ourselves at a deficit when it comes to having enough hands to do the work. The Bible tells us, man, the harvest is plentiful, for the laborers are few. So our ability to pay every laborer isn't a reality. And in truth, paying is the easier way to get people in position, but it doesn't often translate to the people who are sold out for the mission. So making sure that you're looking at your teams, do you have leadership teams in place that are helping to build the carry the weight? So as you build the structure, are they able to carry the weight of the work that's going on? And as a paid staff member, you become someone who helps to empower that leadership team to carry out the role. And having 4 to 5 people on these leadership teams, if possible, is great, because then you're able to spread out the weight. No one person is now needing to own everything. Now, if we're able to get these type of systems in place, then you will find very quickly that many times your ability to solve problems, solve challenges are much greater, because now you can pick up the phone. You can make a phone call to someone in your area. Hey, have you dealt with this? You know the trends that are coming across the country. You know the skill sets and the abilities of people within your congregation, whether they're working in that expertise or in that area or not. Now you can pick up the phone and make a call to someone who deals in banking and finance if you got a question around that. Also, you're then able to look at it and go, I've got leadership teams that are carrying the weight of ministry. So as we grow, your leadership teams become a scalable component, and you will find yourself often, if you equip them and empower them well, you will find yourself running to keep up with your leadership teams as they innovate, as they grow what you do. And your paid positions really do become people who are helping to empower and to enable your leadership teams, and they become the heart of how you function logistically within your ministries. And your paid staff become the holders, the integrity of the vision, to make sure the systems are running smoothly, to make sure that the volunteers and your leadership teams are cared well for, and you create a sustainable culture. So one of the last things that I want to focus on are the personal requirements. So a through line through all of this information that I just shared is the personal development. So I challenge you as an operational or administrative director to grow your own experience base. So attending seminars, conferences, watching podcasts like these, really being a learner of your craft. So relying on simply your knowledge, and then often in this fast-paced running of things, it's hard not to do this, but relying on your own knowledge as the primary base for problem solving will often exhaust you, will frustrate you. And I believe trial and error is one of the worst ways to grow and learn, because it requires a lot of mental energy, a lot of focus, with often doesn't give you great results. Example for us is we just finished our website, and even now at this stage, still having to train myself. The amount of mental time, energy, resources that it took for me to accomplish our website, because we wanted to find a more cost-effective way to do it. Whenever you hear the language cost-effective, you should immediately be concerned. That should raise a red flag for you. Often trying to be cost-effective without the knowledge and the experience of what's really required can be one of the biggest detriments that you can have when it comes to functioning well as a ministry. We went with the cost-effective option, allowing folks within our ministry who were helpful, very helpful, and also relying on personal relationships in order to create our website. Ran into a ton of issues with timing and motivation and challenges within family dynamics that ultimately made the process really, really draining and challenging for myself and the other person that was helping to develop the website. In hindsight, what we should have done is said, yes, there is a cost-effective version of this, but at what cost are we being cost-effective? What cost are we making sure that we are limiting, and what costs are we actually spending more in? So the cost of your time is one of the things you have to factor into problem solving. And one of the ways you can minimize the amount of time that you spend problem solving is actually reaching out to the professionals, paying a professional wage. And if you find that that wage is too high, then you yourself have to spend some time becoming a learner, a professional learner of whatever the topic is before you jump into the process. But like I said, a great way to avoid that, a great way to be on the front side of the personal requirements, is to get in a routine habit of watching podcasts that deal with operations, that deal with development, that deal with personal growth, that deal with building good habits and disciplines. All of these things will be a way that you can grow your problem solving base while improving the overall function of your team. So making sure, for us, like the website, making sure that you are making choices that are not solely based on financial cost effectiveness, but actually taking time to look at how much of your time it takes. And if you are working through the personal requirements, growing your own education when it comes to the different topics, being a student of the game, you'll find that you can be on the front end of a lot of your problem solving challenges. So that's our talk for today. I hope it helped provide some information, some ways of thinking that will allow you to step beyond just the basic function. And these will often be a little bit shorter because I want to give you great chunks of information without at the same time overloading you. So if you have questions, you have thoughts, I'd love to engage in dialogue over this conversation. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts when we talk about the problem solving and the challenging components and how you proactively solve them. As always, remember, please remember that you don't have to have everything to do something, right? And every day with the right tools, it's possible for you to do the impossible with less. It's possible for you to do the impossible with less. And remember, your amount of resources don't speak for you, but how you use them says everything. Let's start working smarter, not harder. Thanks for the time today. Hope this was encouraging. And as always, please like, share, rate. We have a new teaching that's released every Thursday. And like I said, I've got some great guests coming up from different churches throughout our nation that are going to provide great information from their direct ear operation roles or administrative roles. Thanks for hanging out. Talk to everybody soon.